In the year 2147, Earth was no longer alone in the universe. The discovery of alien life came not through peaceful greetings or shared knowledge, but through chaos and fear. A massive alien ship, battered and lifeless, drifted silently into Earth's orbit. Its arrival sent shockwaves across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond. Scientists raced to understand it, and ordinary people watched the skies with a mix of awe and dread. Ethan Cole, a quiet and unassuming archaeologist, found himself at the center of this historic event. He wasn't a soldier or a politician, just a man who had spent his life studying ancient artifacts. When he was called to join the team investigating the alien vessel, Ethan felt both excited and uneasy. He had always dreamed of uncovering secrets from the past, but nothing could have prepared him for what lay inside the derelict ship. The alien craft was enormous, its metallic surface scarred by battles long over. Inside, the air was cold and heavy with an eerie silence. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, pulsing like slow heartbeats. The corridors twisted in ways that seemed impossible, defying logic and geometry. Despite the advanced technology around him, everything about the ship felt wrong, as if it didn't belong in this universe. Deep within the wreckage, Ethan and his team stumbled upon something extraordinary. In a dimly lit chamber, resting on a pedestal of black stone, was a suit of armor. It wasn't like any armor Ethan had ever seen. The material shimmered with colors that shifted depending on the angle, and intricate patterns covered its surface. It looked almost alive, humming softly with energy. For weeks, scientists tried to activate it, but nothing worked. No scans revealed how it functioned, and no amount of experimentation brought it to life. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. Ethan was examining the armor closely, running his fingers along its smooth edges as he tried to make sense of its design. His hand brushed against a section near the chest plate, and suddenly, the room filled with light. The armor sprang to life, glowing brighter than the sun. Before anyone could react, it moved, wrapping itself around Ethan in a blur of motion. When the light faded, Ethan stood frozen, his body encased in the alien armor. Panic erupted among the researchers. Some shouted for help, others backed away in fear, but Ethan didn't feel afraid. Instead, he felt different. The armor fit perfectly, as though it had been made for him. It wasn't heavy or restrictive. Instead, it felt like a second skin. Every movement he made was smoother, faster, stronger. He clenched his fist, and the armor responded instantly, amplifying his strength. Dr. Rachel Monroe, the lead scientist on the project, rushed to his side. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded slowly, still trying to process what had just happened. "I think so," he replied. "But I don't know how to take it off." As the hours passed, the team realized that the armor wasn't just a piece of equipment. It was intelligent. It responded to Ethan's thoughts, adapting to his intentions without needing commands. When he wanted to move quickly, the armor propelled him forward with incredible speed. When he reached out to touch something fragile, it softened its grip automatically. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just alien technology. It was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. But there was also unease. Why had the armor chosen Ethan? What did it want from him? And most importantly, what would happen next? As Ethan stared at his reflection in a nearby monitor, clad in the gleaming alien armor, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life, and perhaps the fate of the entire world, had just changed forever. Ethan woke up hours later in the containment lab, surrounded by frantic researchers. The alien armor still clung to his body, refusing to let go no matter how hard they tried to remove it. Every attempt ended in failure. The armor seemed to resist their efforts as if it had a will of its own. Dr. Rachel Monroe paced back and forth, her face pale with worry. She glanced at Ethan, who sat silently on the examination table, looking more confused than scared. "What's happening to me?" Ethan finally asked, his voice low and uncertain. He flexed his fingers, watching as the armor responded instantly, moving with him like a second layer of skin. It wasn't painful, but it felt strange, like wearing something that was alive. Rachel stopped pacing and turned to face him. "We're not sure yet," she admitted. "But whatever this thing is, it's far beyond anything we've ever seen. It's not just protecting you, it's enhancing you." To prove her point, Rachel handed Ethan a small metal rod. "Try bending it," she said. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then took the rod in his hand. With almost no effort, he crushed it into a twisted lump of metal. His eyes widened in shock. "That shouldn't be possible," he muttered. The tests continued throughout the day. They discovered that the armor didn't just boost Ethan's physical strength. It sharpened his reflexes and heightened his senses. When he focused, he could hear conversations from across the room or see details others would miss. Even stranger, the armor seemed to anticipate his actions, reacting faster than he could think. At one point, when a piece of equipment fell off a nearby table, the armor moved Ethan's arm instinctively to catch it before it hit the ground. But it wasn't all amazing. As the hours passed, Ethan began to feel uneasy. The armor whispered to him, not in words, but in feelings and fleeting images. It showed him glimpses of battles fought long ago, scenes of destruction and chaos. Sometimes he felt a faint pressure in his mind, urging him to act without thinking. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it made him anxious. Rachel noticed the change in him. "Are you okay?" she asked, placing a hand on his shoulder. Ethan nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure. "It's just, I can feel it," he said slowly, "like it's trying to tell me something." By the end of the day, the team had gathered enough data to form a theory. The armor wasn't just a tool, it was sentient. It had chosen Ethan for a reason, though no one could figure out why. Some scientists speculated that it needed a host to function properly, while others believed it was testing him in some way. Whatever the truth was, one thing became clear: the armor wasn't going anywhere. As night fell, Ethan lay awake in a makeshift bed inside the lab. The armor pulsed faintly against his skin, keeping him company in the silence. He stared up at the ceiling, his mind racing with questions. Was he special? Had he done something to deserve this? Or was he simply unlucky? Before he could drift off to sleep, the armor flared to life again. This time, it projected an image directly into his mind. Ethan saw a star-filled sky, vast and endless. In the distance, a fleet of alien ships loomed, their weapons glowing ominously. The vision lasted only a few seconds, but it left Ethan breathless. When he opened his eyes, Rachel was standing over him, holding a tablet. Her expression was grim. "We intercepted a transmission," she said quietly. "Another alien fleet is heading toward Earth. They'll be here in 3 weeks. Ethan sat up, his heart pounding. For the first time since the armor had bonded with him, he understood what it wanted. It hadn't chosen him randomly. It had chosen him because it knew what was coming. And now, whether he liked it or not, he was humanity's best hope for survival. The news of the approaching alien fleet spread quickly, reaching military leaders and government officials within hours. General Harold Briggs, a stern man with sharp eyes and an even sharper temper, wasted no time in taking charge. He stormed into the lab where Ethan was being studied, his boots clicking loudly against the tiled floor. Behind him trailed a group of officers, their faces grim. "This is unacceptable," Briggs barked as soon as he entered. His gaze locked onto Ethan, who stood awkwardly in the center of the room, still clad in the alien armor. "We can't afford to waste time testing this thing. We need results. Now." Rachel stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "General, we're doing everything we can. But the armor isn't just a weapon. It's complex technology that we don't fully understand yet. Rushing could lead to mistakes." Briggs glared at her. "Mistakes are a luxury we don't have. Those aliens will be here in less than 3 weeks. If we don't prepare, Earth will burn." He turned back to Ethan. "You," he said, pointing a finger. "You're going to train. Starting today." Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. He wasn't a soldier. He was an archaeologist, used to digging through dirt and deciphering ancient texts, not fighting wars. But the look in Briggs' eyes told him there was no room for argument. Reluctantly, he nodded. Over the next few days, Ethan underwent intense training under the watchful eye of Captain Lisa Hartman, a seasoned officer known for her discipline and skill. She pushed him harder than anyone ever had, forcing him to use the armor's abilities in ways he hadn't imagined. At first, Ethan struggled. The armor responded to his thoughts, but controlling it required focus, something that didn't come easily when bullets were flying or explosions rocked the ground. "You have to trust it," Lisa told him one evening after a grueling session. They stood on the edge of a simulated battlefield, smoke curling around them. "The armor knows what you want before you do. Stop thinking so much and let it guide you." Ethan took her advice to heart. Slowly, he began to adapt. The more he used the armor, the more natural it felt. It became an extension of himself, moving with him as if they were one. During exercises, he dodged attacks with ease, countered threats with precision, and even managed to disable enemy drones with bursts of energy from the armor's hidden weapon systems. The transformation was remarkable, but it came at a cost. As the days passed, Ethan noticed changes in himself. The whispers in his mind grew louder, more insistent. The armor showed him visions of battles fought by its previous owners, scenes filled with fire and death. Sometimes it urged him to act aggressively, pushing him to strike first and ask questions later. Other times, it made him feel invincible, as though nothing could harm him. Ethan tried to ignore these feelings, but they lingered, gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. Rachel watched all of this with growing concern. One night, after another long day of training, she pulled Ethan aside. "You need to be careful," she said softly. Her tone was gentle, but her eyes were serious. "This armor, it's powerful, yes, but it's also dangerous. History tells us that those who used it before ended up destroying themselves. Don't let it consume you." Ethan sighed, running a hand over the smooth surface of the armor. "What choice do I have?" he asked. "If I don't use it, who will? Everyone is counting on me." Rachel hesitated, then placed a hand on his shoulder. "Just remember, power like this comes with a price. Stay true to yourself, Ethan. Don't lose sight of who you are." Her words stayed with him as he walked back to his quarters. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, the armor pulsed faintly against his skin. For the first time, Ethan wondered if Rachel was right. Was he strong enough to control the armor, or would it end up controlling him? The day of the alien fleet's arrival came sooner than anyone expected. Earth's defenses were hastily assembled, a patchwork of outdated ships and untested weapons. Ethan stood at the center of it all, clad in the alien armor that now felt like both a gift and a curse. Around him, soldiers prepared for battle, their faces tense with fear and determination. Captain Lisa Hartman gave orders through her communicator, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You're our ace," she said to Ethan as they boarded a transport ship heading to the front lines. "Don't hold back." Ethan nodded but didn't respond. He could feel the weight of everyone's hopes resting on his shoulders. The armor pulsed faintly, responding to his nerves. It seemed to sense what was coming too, its energy growing stronger with each passing moment. When they reached orbit, the sight was overwhelming. The alien fleet stretched across the darkness of space, countless ships glowing with menacing red lights. They moved in perfect formation, a swarm of predators closing in on their prey. Earth's forces looked tiny in comparison, scattered and fragile against the invaders' might. The battle began without warning. Alien ships opened fire, their beams cutting through human vessels like paper. Explosions lit up the void, scattering debris in every direction. Ethan's transport ship shook violently as it dodged incoming attacks. Through the viewport, he saw the devastation unfolding. The loss of life, the destruction of everything people had worked so hard to build. "Go," Lisa shouted, pushing Ethan toward the airlock. "We'll cover you." Taking a deep breath, Ethan leaped from the ship, the armor propelling him forward with incredible speed. He soared through the battlefield, dodging blasts and weaving between ships. For the first time, he unleashed the armor's full potential. Energy surged through his limbs as he landed on the hull of an alien cruiser. The metal beneath him groaned under the impact, and the armor's weapon systems activated instantly. With a thought, Ethan fired a concentrated beam of energy into the ship's surface, piercing its defenses. The vessel shuddered, then exploded in a burst of light. Cheers erupted over the comms as Ethan moved to the next target. One by one, he took down enemy ships, his movements fluid and precise. The armor guided him, anticipating threats before they even appeared. It was as if he had become part of something greater, a force beyond human understanding. But the battle wasn't without cost. As Ethan fought, he began to hear whispers louder than ever before. The armor urged him to push harder, to destroy more, to end the threat once and for all. Visions of ancient wars flooded his mind. Images of entire civilizations reduced to ash. For a brief moment, Ethan hesitated. Was this what the armor wanted? To turn him into a weapon of mass destruction? Captain Hartman's voice snapped him out of it. "Ethan, we need you here. More ships are incoming." Shaking off the doubt, Ethan refocused. He couldn't afford to second-guess himself. Not now. With renewed determination, he dove deeper into the fray, targeting the largest alien vessel in the fleet. It was massive, bristling with weapons that overwhelmed Earth's forces. If it stayed operational, humanity wouldn't stand a chance. Summoning all his strength, Ethan activated the armor's most powerful ability, a burst of energy capable of tearing through even the toughest defenses. The world around him slowed as he aimed carefully, letting the armor guide his movements. Then, with a surge of power, he released the blast. A wave of golden light engulfed the alien flagship, ripping it apart in an instant. The explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, forcing the remaining alien ships to retreat. Cheers erupted across the comms as Earth's forces regrouped, battered but victorious. Ethan floated amidst the wreckage, his body trembling with exhaustion. The armor hummed softly, its glow dimming slightly. For a moment, there was silence. Then Lisa's voice broke through the comms. "You did it, Ethan. You saved us." But as Ethan looked at the ruins surrounding him, he couldn't shake the feeling that the victory had come at a price, one he wasn't sure he was ready to pay. After the battle, Ethan returned to Earth as a hero, though he didn't feel like one. The victory had been hard won, but the cost weighed heavily on him. Countless lives had been lost, and entire cities lay in ruins from the alien attacks that had reached the planet's surface. As he walked through the wreckage of what was once a thriving metropolis, Ethan couldn't help but wonder if it was all worth it. The armor still clung to him, refusing to release its grip. It no longer pulsed with the same intensity as during the fight, but it remained active, humming faintly against his skin. At night, when Ethan closed his eyes, the whispers grew louder. They weren't just random thoughts or fleeting images anymore. They were memories, fragments of the armor's past. He saw glimpses of ancient battles fought by its creators, beings who had wielded its power with both awe and arrogance. These visions came unbidden, filling his dreams with fire and destruction. Dr. Rachel Monroe noticed the toll it was taking on him. She visited him often, bringing updates from the research team and checking on his mental state. One evening, she found him sitting alone in a dimly lit room, staring blankly at the wall. The armor glowed softly in the darkness, casting shadows across his face. "You're not sleeping," Rachel said gently, sitting beside him. "What's wrong?" Ethan hesitated before answering. "It's showing me things," he admitted. "Things I don't want to see." Rachel leaned closer, her expression softening. "Like what?" "Battles, wars, entire worlds burning." His voice trembled slightly. "I think it's trying to teach me something. but I'm not sure I can handle it." Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long. Let us help you. Maybe if we piece together these visions, we can understand why the armor chose you, and what it wants from humanity." Her words gave Ethan a small sense of hope. Over the next few days, he began sharing the details of his dreams with Rachel and her team. Together, they pieced together clues hidden within the alien symbols etched into the armor's surface. Slowly, a story emerged, a tale of an advanced civilization undone by its own ambition. The armor hadn't been created solely as a weapon. It was also a test, designed to judge whether any species was worthy of inheriting its creator's legacy. One night, while studying the data, Ethan experienced a vision more vivid than any before. He stood in the middle of a grand hall filled with towering statues of the armor's creators. Their faces were proud yet sorrowful, their eyes hollow with regret. A voice echoed around him, deep and resonant. "You are being tested," it said. "Not just you, but your kind. Prove yourselves worthy, or perish as we did." When Ethan woke up, his heart was pounding. He immediately called Rachel, who rushed to his side. After hearing about the vision, she nodded thoughtfully. "It makes sense," she said. "The armor isn't just judging you, it's judging all of humanity. That's why it won't let go. It's waiting to see what we'll do next." The realization hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for redemption. For himself, for humanity, and perhaps even for the armor itself. But as he stared at his reflection in a nearby window, clad in the shimmering alien suit, he couldn't shake the fear that humanity might fail the test. "What happens if we're not worthy?" he asked quietly. Rachel didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm but kind. "Then we'll have to become worthy. No matter how hard it is, Ethan, we can't give up. Not now." Her words stayed with him as he prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The armor pulsed faintly, as if agreeing. Ethan's newfound purpose didn't last long. General Harold Briggs had been watching him closely, and the general's patience was wearing thin. To Briggs, the alien armor wasn't a test or a mystery. It was a weapon, plain and simple. And weapons, in his mind, belonged under military control. One evening, as Ethan rested in a secure facility, a group of soldiers stormed into the room. They were armed and dressed in tactical gear, their faces hidden behind masks. Before Ethan could react, they surrounded him, aiming strange devices at the armor. The devices crackled with energy, sending pulses of light toward him. "What are you doing?" Ethan shouted, raising his hands instinctively. The armor flared to life, shielding him from the attack. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, absorbing the energy without harm. The soldiers hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Briggs stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "Stand down, Cole. This is for the greater good." "The greater good," Ethan repeated, his voice rising. "You're trying to take something you don't understand." Briggs ignored him, gesturing for his men to continue. "If we can't remove it, we'll neutralize it. Humanity can't afford to have this kind of power in the hands of one man." The soldiers fired again, this time using stronger EMP devices. The armor resisted at first, but Ethan could feel it struggling. Pain shot through his body as the pulses disrupted the connection between him and the suit. He clenched his teeth, fighting to stay conscious. Rachel Monroe burst into the room just as the situation escalated. "Stop this," she yelled, pushing past the soldiers. "You're going to kill him." Briggs turned to her, his expression hard. "This isn't your decision, Doctor. Step aside." Before Rachel could respond, Ethan acted. Summoning every ounce of strength, he activated the armor's defensive systems. A wave of energy erupted from him, knocking the soldiers off their feet. The EMP devices shattered, sparks flying as they hit the ground. Ethan stood trembling, his breath ragged. "This ends now," he said, his voice firm despite the chaos around him. With the armor's help, he moved faster than anyone could follow. slipping past the stunned soldiers and out of the room. Outside, alarms blared as Ethan fled the facility. He knew he couldn't stay. He was marked as a threat, a fugitive. As he ran, the armor guided him, showing him paths and shortcuts that kept him one step ahead of his pursuers. Helicopters roared overhead, searchlights cutting through the darkness. Ethan ducked into an abandoned building, his heart pounding. For the first time since the armor had bonded with him, Ethan felt truly alone. The whispers in his mind grew louder, urging him to fight back, to strike at those who sought to control him. But he resisted. He wouldn't become what they feared, a weapon of destruction. Hours later, Ethan emerged from hiding, moving cautiously through the shadows. He needed allies, people who understood the armor's true nature and shared his desire to protect humanity rather than exploit it. He remembered Marcus Lane, a former pilot he'd met during the battle against the aliens. Marcus had lost his family in the invasion and had spoken openly about his distrust of the military's motives. Ethan reached out to Marcus using a secure line, explaining his situation. To his relief, Marcus agreed to meet. Together with Claire Bennett, a brilliant engineer who had worked briefly on the armor systems, they formed a small team of rogues determined to uncover the truth. As Ethan explained everything to them, his visions, the armor's warnings, and Briggs' betrayal, Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "They'll never stop hunting you," he said. "But if what you're saying is true, then running isn't the answer. We need to figure out what this thing wants, and how to use it without losing ourselves." Claire added, "If the armor is testing us, then maybe it's time we started thinking like it does, not as soldiers or scientists, but as humans." Ethan looked at them, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in days. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he wasn't alone anymore. With Marcus and Claire by his side, Ethan began to piece together a new plan. The three of them worked in secret, hiding in an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, but it was safe, for now. Inside, they set up a makeshift lab using stolen equipment and whatever supplies they could scavenge. Claire spent hours studying the armor, running tests to understand its limits and capabilities. Marcus, meanwhile, used his knowledge of alien technology to help Ethan control it more effectively. The armor itself seemed to respond to their efforts. It no longer felt like a foreign object clinging to Ethan's body. Instead, it felt like a partner, guiding him as he learned to harness its power. One day, while practicing in a deserted field, Ethan discovered something new. When he focused hard enough, the armor allowed him to manipulate time and space on a small scale. He could slow down moments, dodge attacks before they happened, or even create brief bursts of energy that disrupted enemy movements. "This is incredible," Claire said, her eyes wide with excitement as she watched Ethan train. "If we can figure out how to replicate this ability, it could change everything." But not all discoveries were positive. As Ethan pushed himself harder, the whispers in his mind grew louder and more insistent. They weren't just memories or visions anymore. They were warnings. The armor showed him glimpses of Earth's future if humanity failed its test. Cities reduced to ash, oceans boiling under alien weapons, and skies choked with smoke. Each image left him shaken, reminding him of the stakes. Marcus noticed the toll it was taking. "You can't keep doing this alone," he said one evening after a particularly intense session. "You're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Let us help." Ethan hesitated. He wanted to trust them, but the armor's influence made it hard. Sometimes it urged him to act without thinking, to prioritize survival over morality. Other times, it filled him with doubt, whispering that he wasn't strong enough to lead. Still, Marcus and Claire had proven themselves loyal. Slowly, Ethan began to open up, sharing his fears and struggles with them. Together, they devised a risky strategy. Using clues from the armor's symbols and Ethan's visions, they traced its origins to a distant star system. According to Claire's calculations, the coordinates matched the location of the alien creator's homeworld, or what remained of it. If they could reach it, they might find answers about the armor's true purpose. The journey wouldn't be easy. Earth's resources were stretched thin after the invasion, and most ships capable of deep space travel had been destroyed. But Marcus had connections, friends who owed him favors. After days of negotiating, he secured access to a small, outdated vessel designed for short-range missions. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do. As they prepared for departure, Ethan felt a mix of hope and dread. Hope because they were finally taking action, and dread because he knew the risks. The armor hummed softly against his skin, as if sensing his unease. For the first time, it didn't push him toward aggression or ambition. Instead, it offered something else: calm, a quiet reassurance that he wasn't alone. On the night before their launch, the team gathered around a flickering campfire outside the warehouse. The air was cool, and the stars above seemed endless. Claire broke the silence. "Do you think we'll make it back?" she asked, her voice soft. Marcus shrugged. "Doesn't matter. What matters is why we're going." Ethan nodded, staring into the flames. "We're going because we have to believe there's another way. For humanity. For everyone." The fire crackled as the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Tomorrow, they would leave Earth behind, venturing into the unknown. Whatever awaited them, they knew one thing for certain: failure wasn't an option. The journey to the alien star system was long and grueling. The small ship groaned under the strain of deep space travel, its outdated systems barely holding together. Ethan, Marcus, and Claire took turns monitoring the controls, their eyes glued to the screens as they navigated through asteroid fields and patches of cosmic radiation. Despite the challenges, they pressed on, driven by the hope of uncovering answers. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, what they found was both awe-inspiring and heartbreaking. The alien homeworld, or what remained of it, was a desolate wasteland. Once vibrant and teeming with life, the planet now resembled a graveyard. Its surface was cracked and barren, its skies choked with ash. Towering ruins jutted out from the ground like broken bones, remnants of a civilization that had reached incredible heights before collapsing into ruin. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as the ship descended toward the planet's surface. The armor pulsed faintly, resonating with the energy of this place. It was as if the suit recognized its origins, mourning the loss of its creators. For the first time, Ethan understood the weight of the armor's history. It wasn't just a weapon or a test. It was a relic of a people who would destroy themselves. They landed near one of the largest structures, a crumbling tower that still emitted faint traces of power. As they stepped onto the alien soil, the air was thick and heavy, carrying an eerie silence. Claire scanned the area with her equipment, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This place is dead," she said softly. "But there's something here, some kind of residual energy." Marcus nodded, gripping his rifle tightly. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we might find." Inside the tower, they discovered holographic archives preserved within the walls. The images flickered to life as they approached, showing scenes of the alien civilization at its peak. They were a proud and advanced species, capable of engineering wonders beyond human imagination. But their pride had become their downfall. The holograms revealed how the aliens had turned their technology against each other, using it for conquest and control. Wars erupted across their worlds, fueled by greed and ambition. In the end, they had wiped themselves out, leaving behind only ruins and regrets. As Ethan watched the holograms, the armor whispered to him again. This time, the message was clear. Humanity was being tested because the aliens had failed. The armor wasn't just judging whether humans were strong enough to wield its power. It was testing whether they could resist the same flaws that had doomed its creators. "This isn't about strength," Ethan said aloud, his voice trembling. "It's about choice, about whether we can learn from their mistakes." Claire looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "If that's true, then maybe the armor isn't asking us to be perfect. Maybe it's asking us to try." Marcus added, "And maybe that's all it needs to see." Before they could leave, the ground began to shake. The tower's systems were failing, collapsing under centuries of decay. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed as debris rained down around them. Ethan led the group back to the ship, the armor guiding his movements to keep them safe. As they escaped the crumbling structure, Ethan glanced back at the ruins one last time. He felt a pang of sadness, but also resolve. Back aboard the ship, they set a course for Earth. The journey home would take weeks, but Ethan knew what he had to do. The armor's purpose was no longer a mystery. It was a second chance, not just for humanity, but for him as well. And this time, he vowed to make the right choices, no matter how hard they might be. When Ethan and his team returned to Earth, they found the planet in chaos. The alien fleet that had retreated after their earlier defeat was now back, stronger and more determined than before. Cities burned under relentless attacks, and millions of people fled for safety as skies filled with smoke and fire. Humanity's forces were stretched thin, struggling to hold off the invaders with what little remained of their defenses. Ethan knew there was no time to waste. He gathered Marcus, Claire, and a small group of trusted allies to plan their next move. Using the knowledge they had gained from the alien ruins, they realized the invaders weren't just attacking. They were probing, searching for something. The armor seemed to confirm this, pulsing with urgency whenever enemy ships drew near. "They're looking for you," Claire said, her voice tense as she analyzed data on a cracked screen. Or rather, they're looking for the armor. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him again. "Then we give them what they want," he replied firmly. "But on our terms." The plan was risky, a desperate gamble that relied entirely on Ethan's ability to control the armor's power. They decided to lure the alien flagship into a trap, using Ethan as bait. If he could get close enough, he would use the armor's temporal abilities to disable the ship's systems, buying humanity precious time to regroup and strike back. As preparations began, General Harold Briggs reappeared, demanding control over Ethan and the mission. His troops surrounded the makeshift base where Ethan and his team were operating, weapons drawn. Briggs' face was grim, his tone icy. "You've caused enough trouble, Cole. This ends now." Ethan stepped forward, the armor flaring slightly in response to his tension. "If you try to stop us, you'll doom everyone," he said evenly. "This isn't about you or me. It's about survival." For a moment, it seemed like Briggs might order his men to attack. But then Rachel Monroe intervened, stepping between them. Her voice was calm but firm. "General, if you take him out of the fight, we lose our best chance. Trust him or step aside." Briggs hesitated, his jaw tightening. Finally, he nodded curtly and stepped back. "Do what you have to do," he muttered. "But if this fails, it's on your head." With Briggs standing down, Ethan and his team launched their assault. Flying directly toward the alien fleet, Ethan used the armor's speed and agility to weave through enemy fire. The aliens quickly identified him as their target, focusing all their firepower on his small ship. Explosions rocked the air around him, but the armor shielded him, absorbing the impacts without fail. When he reached the flagship, Ethan leaped from his vessel, landing on its hull with a thunderous crash. The armor surged with energy, guiding him as he moved toward the ship's core. Alien soldiers swarmed him, firing beams of light and launching projectiles, but none could penetrate the armor's defenses. Ethan fought back with precision, disabling enemies with bursts of energy and creating shockwaves that sent them flying. Finally, he reached the heart of the ship, a massive chamber glowing with alien technology. Focusing every ounce of strength, Ethan activated the armor's temporal manipulation ability. Time slowed around him, the hum of machinery faltering as the flagship's systems began to collapse. The aliens scrambled to counteract the disruption, but it was too late. With a final surge of power, Ethan overloaded the core, trapping the entire ship in a loop of frozen time. Exhausted and battered, Ethan floated away from the immobilized flagship as explosions erupted behind him. Below, Earth's remaining forces rallied, launching a coordinated counterattack against the leaderless alien fleet. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered back to life. As Ethan drifted through space, the armor pulsed faintly, its glow dimming. He didn't know how much longer he could keep going, but one thing was certain. Humanity had been given another chance, and this time, they couldn't afford to waste it. The battle was over, but the cost had been immense. Cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives had been lost. The alien fleet had been driven back, their flagship trapped in a timeless loop thanks to Ethan's sacrifice. Now, as the dust settled, humanity faced the daunting task of rebuilding what had been destroyed. Ethan stood atop a crumbling skyscraper, overlooking the wreckage of a once thriving city. The armor still clung to him, though its glow had faded significantly. It no longer pulsed with the same energy, as if it too had reached its limit. For weeks, Ethan had carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, fighting battles he never asked for and making choices no one should have to make. But now, as he stared at the horizon, he felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. Rachel Monroe approached him quietly, her footsteps soft against the debris-strewn rooftop. She carried a tablet in one hand, its screen displaying reports of recovery efforts across the globe. "You did it," she said softly, stopping beside him. "You gave us a chance." Ethan didn't respond right away. He glanced down at the armor, running a finger along its surface. "I didn't do it alone," he finally said. "Marcus, Claire, you, all of you helped. I just followed the path the armor showed me." Rachel nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think it'll ever let you go?" Before Ethan could answer, the armor flared faintly, drawing both their attention. Its patterns shifted, glowing brighter for a moment before beginning to dissolve. Piece by piece, the suit unraveled, breaking apart into shimmering fragments of light. Within seconds, it was gone, leaving Ethan standing in his own clothes for the first time in months. He looked at his hands, flexing his fingers. They felt strange without the armor's presence, lighter but also weaker. For so long, he had relied on its strength, its guidance. Now he would have to find his own way. "What does this mean?" Rachel asked, her voice tinged with awe. Ethan shook his head slowly. "I think it means we passed the test, or at least we've earned the chance to prove ourselves." As the days turned into weeks, humanity began to rebuild. The lessons learned from the alien ruins were shared openly, inspiring a new era of cooperation and innovation. Governments worked together to create stronger defenses, while scientists focused on advancing technology in ways that benefited everyone. People around the world came together, united by the realization that survival depended not on power, but on unity. Ethan stayed out of the spotlight, choosing instead to live quietly with Marcus and Claire. They had become more than allies. They were family. Together, they started a small foundation dedicated to preserving knowledge and fostering understanding between cultures. Ethan often found himself thinking about the aliens who had created the armor, wondering if they would have been proud of what humanity had achieved, or if they would see how far there was still to go. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan sat outside their modest home, staring up at the stars. The sky was clearer now, free of the smoke and ash that had once clouded it. He felt a pang of sadness knowing the armor was gone, but also gratitude for the role it had played in shaping his life and the future of Earth. "We're going to be okay," Marcus said, joining him with a cup of coffee in hand. His tone was confident, yet gentle. Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah," he replied, "we will be." But deep down, he couldn't help wondering, had humanity truly changed? Or was this just the calm before another storm? Only time would tell. For now, though, Ethan chose to believe in hope, for himself, for his friends, and for the fragile planet they called home.